Welcome back to the Unleashed. I'm your host, Jared Beeler. I just had somebody ask me a question in the comments. They wanted to know if there was any disputes or things they could give information if they were trying to talk with an atheist or an atheist group or something like that. You guys know that, well, maybe you don't know. Every one of the videos that I put out is information. It is teaching. You can go back. You can look at it. If you have questions about submitting to authority, I have videos for that. If you want to know if it's right to fight, I have videos about that. The righteous are as bold as a lion, all right? You want to know about Hollow Earth. You want to know if there's one Gog and Magog. No, there's two. There's one that happens before the tribulation. There's one that happens at the end of the 1,000 years. Every single video is a lesson. And though I talk about the rapture and different things like that, because I'm always throwing it in there, especially the vision, it's all supposed to be a lesson, so you can go back. So I say record videos. You know, if you need to go over something or listen again, you'll have it personally. You'll have it on your computer. Not only that, but other people that will find it will, all right? But the question about, information that you could use if you're trying to witness to atheists and stuff like that, yeah, I just put together a list real fast of 10 different topics, okay, and I'm going to go over them and make this hopefully a quick little video, and hopefully it'll help you guys if you're doing that. And if you are, well, I'm really happy for you, and it's worth me telling you. If you're not, you know that I'm just blowing air, and there's really no point to it, because if you're just watching and not doing anything with the information, it's really pointless. I'm not looking for groupies, money, clicks, or anything like that goes along with what the church buildings, which I think are an abomination, have to do with. It has nothing to do with it. It's a personal relationship with God, okay? And that's what I've tried to point out the whole time. But I want to go over 10 different things that you guys can use if you want to talk to the world about this stuff to refute atheism and the nonsense. Just so you know, they're going to throw away atheism when the time comes to bring in Luciferianism. It can barely hold together evolution as it is, and they are going to crash it, but they want to crash Christianity at the same time, which they're supposedly going to do. If you listen to Albert Pike, this is part of their plan and the agenda after World War III. But anyways, okay, let's jump into it. The very first one. If you want to discuss this stuff, all right, so write this down, save the video, use it, do whatever you want. It's all yours. It's all free. It's no problem. Okay, Earth's population, all right? Here's one of the big ones. We have a population now about 7.4 billion. In a few years, it's going to be 8 billion people, okay? We're going to look at the doubling rate of this population growth, all right? This stays at a steady pace. In 1960s, the Earth's population was 3.5 billion. This is only about 40 years ago, 50 years ago, okay? All right, half the population now. In the early 1900s, all right, the Earth's population was around 1 billion people, okay? This is just 100 years ago. We are losing a percentage of 90%, okay? Go back to 2000 AD, the time of Jesus, the Earth's population was 200 million. Now we've lost 98% of the Earth's population, okay? It's gone just by going back in time 2,000 years, all right? You go back 2,000 more years, what is that? That's 4,000 years ago, exactly the time after Noah's flood. And you have 8 people getting off the ark and repopulating the Earth, all right? A story that's built in cultures all over the world. Everybody knows about it and has a very root foundation in a biblical worldwide flood, okay? All right, if you go off of, and then of course there was people before that were killed off and stuff like that, but just 4,000 years and the whole population of the Earth mathematically fits it. I had an atheist professor or whatever in college that told my little brother, he's like, I definitely have questions about things, because I mean it's as simple as just looking at the doubling rate, and he discussed the very topic that I just said. He's like, whatever is going on, I'm not sure, but I definitely know that I have questions, because it doesn't line up with the evolutionary perspective on the doubling rate and what we know of the population of the Earth, okay? So just want to throw that out there. If you go off the evolutionary perspective one, and many people know about this that have looked into it, all right? If we started 100 million or a million years ago, humans and evolution, or 100,000 years ago, right? If we go off the million one, it's 6 people per square inch on the planet, all right? Just by looking at the doubling rate and how fast things are growing, okay? They've calculated this in with wars and everything else. It's impossible, okay? There is absolutely no way. The foundation on the population of Earth is very relatively young, and we're going to get into why this is going to point into the whole alien agenda and everything else, because they know that, and they're only buying time because they know it's going to crash. Anybody who looks into it's going to discover the whole thing's whacked. The evolutionary perspective is nonsense. And this is why they're going to have to use the alien agenda, and they're going to bring it out. Of course, this is going to point to Luciferianism and stuff like that. All right, second one that I want to point out. The sun is shrinking, okay? Since the 1800s, when they first had telescopes, they could look at the sun. They've noticed that it has a burn-off rate, okay? And if you look at from the perspective of helium and hydrogen, not even getting into the electric universe, there's a burn-off rate that's going to happen anytime a fuel is burned or anything like that. It loses about 5 miles in diameter per year, okay? They've known this since the 1800s. It's been at a steady pace, okay? The size of the sun is actually shrinking, okay? Now, they could try and say a whole bunch of other nonsense, but the fact of the matter is they know it and it's stayed at a steady pace, all right? We are 92 million miles from the surface of the sun. Venus is around 62 million miles, right? So about 20 million miles difference, okay? Venus is scorched, we're not. We're in a perfect habitable zone, all right? If you go back, since it's staying at a steady rate of 5 miles per year, all right? If you go back 20 million years, the size of the sun's diameter would be out 100 million miles further. That means we would be in the sun, all right? We're 92 million, just under 100 million miles, all right? So where's the comfortable zone, all right? If Venus is already scorched and it's at 62 million by being too close, that's about a 20 million mile difference, all right? That equates out to that we would only be able to go back just a little ways, a few million years, all right? 5 million years, okay? And we'd be around the 20, or 4 million years, sorry, around the 20 million mile mark, okay, where Venus is at, all right? So just think about that for a second. Where is the habitable zone within this? It has to fall in under something under smaller, maybe 2 million or whatever else, at its max, okay, if we're going to go off of this. All right. The problem is you need millions of years, billions of years for light to get here and every other thing like that to take place, for the evolutionary thing to grow, the animals from the rocks and all that. You need billions upon billions of years to make it happen. Just looking at the shrinking of the sun surface and stuff like that makes it absolutely possible. It would give you, if evolution was real, about a 2 to 3 million year max, all right, that would be able to look at this. And so it's total nonsense, all right? So I just want to point that out. Another one, number 3. The moon, it's pulling away, okay? It loses distance of a few inches every year, all right? We know this, and it's pulling away. They might say centimeters, whatever it is, all right? But we know that it's slipping out of the orbit that it's in, and that's just fine. The problem is if you go back to when they say the star was here, it's so close to the surface of the Earth spinning around, it would have been crashed into it, yanked into it, and everything else, right? So the whole thing doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. Another thing is the rotation of the Earth is slowing down. We lose a few seconds or a second or so every year. They even have to put in leap seconds where they stop the clock for a little bit just to calculate for this, because they know that the rotation of the Earth is slowing down. The problem is, if you go back to the time they said that when it started, because you're going back in time, which means you're taking it off each time, all right, or you're adding to it, sorry, each time for the speed at which the Earth is rotating. If you go back to the time when evolution say that we started and everything like that, the rotation of the Earth would have been spinning so fast it would have been inhabitable on the Earth. It would have literally uprooted the trees from centrifugal force spinning and thrown them into outer space. Okay, it's impossible. And yet we know that the Earth's rotation is slowing down. So their diagram, it doesn't make any sense, okay? Hopefully you're writing these stuff down. Dinosaurs, okay? Down in South America, there's hundreds of thousands of dinosaur figurines. I've talked to before in the Rapture 2017 video, which YouTube has deleted supposedly for copyright, stuff like that, probably because of the Discovery Channel, pictures and stuff from the figurines. All right, but there's tons and tons and tons and tons, thousands and thousands of figurines with people riding dinosaurs. All right, and we only put them together in the 1900s, and they're supposedly extinct for millions of years. And yet there's figurines where people are riding on stegosauruses and things like that. Dinosaurs were with humans. All right, the whole story of evolution and the distance of time that it's had, it's nonsense. I'm going to throw another one in there, okay? This is a little bonus one. When scientists, it happens all the time, are looking at Jurassic, Cretaceous, Triassic periods and stuff like that, looking at the rock layers, which are nothing more than sediment layers after the flood, all right? They'll find trees that are petrified, growing up through the middle of them, all right? This would be the equivalent of watching a tree get rot, die, and old, and instead of falling over, it stands there for millions of years and millions of years as sediment buries around it. We've never seen it happen because it doesn't happen. It happened at a very fast pace. The problem is when they drill into these trees that are petrified, they're only about 200 years old. The whole layers that are built around them only took a couple hundred years because it's sediment layers from the flood. All right, there's a little bonus one for you. That's something you can throw in there. It happens all the time. You can find pictures of the internet. It's very, very interesting. All right, it's all over the world like that. Okay. Dinosaur nostril sizes, okay? Another thing that's important. For dinosaurs, in the evolutionary perspective, they say that oxygen has been getting better from back when it was, when in fact it's the exact opposite. Oxygen was better before the flood, and things were better for breathing-wise and stuff like that. How do we know that dinosaurs like the Brontosaurus, the long neck ones, they had nostril sizes the size of horses, and we know that they would not be able to breathe in the atmosphere that we have now. It's the complete opposite of what evolution points out. Not only that, but there's 3-foot dragonfly wings. Animals like that I've showed pictures of, the bald eagle heads that are huge that you could ride on. Armadillos the size of Volkswagen. Sea turtles that are just absolutely huge. All these things are bigger creatures, bigger oxygen, all right? They've been able to test this in labs with tomato plants and things that grow the size of willow trees that never stop reproducing. Totally different world, totally different environment. It hasn't been getting better. It's been getting worse since before that. And this lines up with the flood and how things were better back before that, including the environment and stuff like that, and increases why people were living so long. They were basically living in a barometric oxygen chamber, which is what the Earth was before the flood happened and everything cracked open. Okay, so nostril sizes, that's another important one, right there. Oxygen was better back then, and things were better back then. It's actually getting worse. The opposite of what evolution points out, saying that it was worse back then. Okay. All right, dinosaur soft tissue. Let's see, which one are we on? Number 7, dinosaur soft tissue, okay? They find it all the time. I heard one story about a Triceratops or a T-Rex, I can't remember what it was, where they found soft tissue in it, living blood cells and things like that have not been petrified. To let you know, I have seen a cowboy leg in a leather boot, petrified, turned to solid stone from the late 1800s, early 1900s, okay? That's 100 years, and the thing's solid stone. We're looking at creatures that are millions of years old, supposedly according to evolution, right? And yet we find soft tissue in them, and it's not just in the T-Rex. I ended up discovering that they find it all the time. There's soft tissue that they find in these things all the time when they dig them up, all right? The absolute maximum that scientists will give for a possibility for something like this, not before it becomes petrified, in the circumstances that they're all found in, is 5,000 years max, which is exactly the time before the flood, all right? And that's all that scientists will give them, and yet we find soft tissue all the time, all right? You can't go back that far, which is why there's figurines with people riding on dinosaurs and stuff like that. It isn't millions of years. It's only been a few thousand years since the whole thing started, okay? 6,000 years according to the Bible. And that's the one that I look at, right? Let's go on to the next one. Number 8, ocean levels, all right? They go along with the Bible. If you melt all the ice caps right now, the North Pole and the South Pole, it brings us up, I think it's like 27 or 72 feet worldwide, all right? Ocean levels. Let's take the high number. We'll take 72 feet. Worldwide, so you're going to have states like Florida and stuff that are underwater, but the coast go over. That's all the ice in the world, okay? 27 or 72 feet, all right? Okay, that's fine and dandy. Here's the problem. In the Mediterranean Sea, all right, which is 3 miles in deep spots, and the majority of it's about 2 miles. There's over 200 documented cities at the bottom of it. It's an ancient valley, okay? And it can't be that ancient because things don't go back that far, all right? Cities and towns and things that they know about, all right, that are at the bottom of it, including between Iceland and England or Ireland. They have found a valley some years ago when I was looking at it, at the bottom of a basin in there that would have been on the shoreline of the ocean that's 3 miles under the ocean, okay? Yet again, another area that lines up just like, so you can't just say, well, maybe just the Mediterranean Sea was blocked off. No, this was worldwide. The ocean levels were at least 3 miles lower than they are right now, okay? Well, there's a problem with that. The maximum that we could go up to by melting all the ice caps is only about 72 feet worldwide. How did the oceans within the timeline that supposedly took from billions of years ago from comets and an evolutionary perspective of dropping ice water on the planet, all right, which if you look at the electric universe, they don't even have ice on them anyways, it's static discharge, all right? But looking at that, it would take, and yet people at a max in evolution would have been 1 million to 100,000 years ago being started, let alone being populated enough to make cities and valleys and stuff like that. The whole thing doesn't line up, but it does line up with the Bible, all right? And when Russia dug down there a few years ago and they discovered under the crust there's at least 100 miles thick of water, it goes in with the biblical narrative about water coming up from springs. There not being any rain. Why? Because in high barometric pressure areas, or when we look at a pressure reading, there is no clouds, there is no rain, all right? Which is exactly the environment they were living in, which was giving people a long life, and the oxygen levels, which are so saturated before God, took all that out, all right? So there's another important thing, the ocean levels, okay, that you can use and bring this out. All right, another one. Number 9. This is more on the scientific side of things, all right? So if you're talking to somebody that knows about the electric universe or something like that, you can use that. Supernovas, all right? According to evolutionary perspective, all right, there was only hydrogen collecting and then the explosion, which ended up creating helium and a fusion reaction back and forth within stars, creating the elements in the upper half of the elemental table, all right, that we know, that we look at the chart of elements, all right? And within stars were created that when they die or whatever, those elements were spreading across, creating other things that we have all over the universe, creating planets and stuff like that, which is total nonsense. It would take so long. It's just so stupid. And yet we can't go back that far, right? But I'm just going along and pointing this out. The problem is that scientists know at the lower half, the heavier elements take way more pressure than can be produced in even the biggest stars. So they have to calculate in supernovas. The explosion from a supernova, they believe, can create enough pressure to fuse things together to make the heavier elements of the lower elements of the star chart, okay? Or of the element chart. The problem is under the what we know secretly in the electric universe and primer fields and stuff like that, there actually are no supernovas. It's expansions of magnetic fields that we see gases and plasmas being discharged in the very shape of the primer field. There is no supernovas. It's a load of nonsense, all right? So if you're talking to somebody that's pretty scientific, you can point that one out, all right? That's just another one. And number 10, and one of the most important that we want to talk about is light, all right? Somebody's going to instantly jump to this eventually. Well, we know that it takes this long for light to travel from distant galaxies or distant planet, different universes and things like that. All right, galaxies, that's what I'm trying to say. Solar systems, whatever else. All right. 2004, Harvard sped light up to 300 times its speed. They've also slowed it down using different things like diffusion and stuff like that. The point is that you can't consider light a constant if you can change its speed, all right? Is there a constant speed that we know of that goes through space, or at least where we can perceive it? Yes, it seems to be. But it always stays at that speed, even if it's being sped up. It's very strange, and it starts to give it what looks like dimensional properties, okay? How do I look at that? I have a theory that we see it in real time. And how would that look? If you take a broomstick or something like that, all right, and you put it across the universe, all right, one side to the other, and you have somebody else on the other side, all right, and you take out mass, so there's no weight or anything like that. Somebody could push it from the other side or back, all right? And let's say it's 20 billion light years away, all right? And you're looking on one end with your finger like this. The other guy's on the far end like this, all right? All right, and he can push it back and forth, all right? Well, when you see this back and forth, it's being pushed by one person's finger to the other, and there's no compression, all right? So just for the sake of this, there's no compression in any of this, so it's happening instantaneously. When you look at it from the perceivable side, yeah, it's moving about 1 to 2 miles an hour, all right? But on both sides, where the spectrum ends, all right, this is where you get into your dimensional property, it's happening instantly. It's just traversed the universe 20 billion light years in an absolute instant. And I think that's kind of how we look at light, all right? This is just a personal theory of my own, and I find it very interesting. Like I told you back in 2018, God told me he folded out time from the middle, all right? So it went both directions. So this gets into the whole crazy gray time and stuff like that, but there's just different theories and other interesting things, all right? But time and what the Bible says, God stretched out the universe, all right? Stretched out light. It might have been literally right here, and then he pulled it out further. There's no telling on that one, so getting into that discussion, I only want to point out that they can speed it up, they can slow it down, and they have done it, all right? So to say it's a constant or something can't mess with it, all right, that we know of or that we can perceive, you can't give that a guarantee at all right? And especially when you start adding up other things. If there's 9 out of 10 that are saying, hey, it's not old, you go with the 9 out of the 10, not the 1 out of the 9, all right? And I hope this helps, all right? Especially if you're talking with some sort of evolutionist or atheist and you're doing any witnessing and stuff like that. But we're ultimately going to get into the last part. Let me point this out. After you make all these points, or if somebody ever comes to this realization, you're going to get into the very last part, and that is aliens. If it's not that old, then we were planted here, okay? Aliens planted us here, higher beings, all right? That's the whole point. That's what they're trying to push for. That's what's going to happen because they know the truth's going to come out eventually, so that is the direction that they're going to go, all right? Aliens, they are giant spirits in a fleshly body, whether it was created, whether they can pull suits that look like different beings out of other dimensions, whether they grow them in cryolabs, whatever that they're using. These are nothing but suits for fallen angel Nephilim, Raphaim spirits they're waiting for the final judgment that they can ride on it, right? This is exactly what they are. This is why when they cut aliens open, they found no stomach or organs or anything like that. They look like an organic android, a flesh suit, which is exactly what it is. Enter Raphaelian spirits or Nephilim spirits when they're waiting for their final judgment. They can inhabit inanimate objects, idols, other people, we know as demon possession, other things like that, right? They're taking over these flesh suits and they ride around in them so they could be in our third dimension. Other than that, they would be in a spirit dimension that's just on the other side, all right? And that's the whole point with the aliens. That's where they're going to go their direction. So if somebody says that, you'll be able to top it off with the cherry and point out exactly what aliens are, why to stay away from them, why they're so bad, why on multiple occasions we know what's going on, and why, most importantly, out of all the research done, which Tom Horn and Chris Putnam put together when they interviewed the people that do counseling for abductions and stuff all over the world, they said there's only one thing that we've ever seen all over the world, because nothing's immune to it. Everybody's been abducted all over the place in cultures and races and villages and tribes and stuff like that. There's only one thing we know, and we only hear about it once in a while. In the middle of an abduction, if somebody is in the process of being abducted and they cry out to Jesus or they rebuke them in Jesus' name, the aliens flee for their lives, all right? This gives the whole absolute proof. These are demonic beings. It's the Raphaelian spirits, the Nephilim, and all that stuff like that in disguise, putting on the whole alien agenda they've been working on for the past 4,000 or 5,000 years. And it's a doozy. I mean, they got ships out there that are huge. They've got tons of them. They'll be able to surround the whole planet. They'll be able to put on the masquerade. It's going to be spectacular. Okay, so that's just the cherry on top, and why that whole thing's fake as well. The only thing that points out is the biblical narrative, the biblical perspective, and the whole thing lines up with the whole atheist evolution thing. It's totally whack. It's debunked, and you can point these 10 different facts out, all right? So if you're doing this to witness, then I hope you can add this to your arsenal of different topics that you can discuss and talk with people about it, and I really hope this helps. Save it, use it, share it, memorize it, whatever you want, but hopefully it helps, and Merry Christmas. God bless. I'll catch you next time in the Leashing. Bye.